Mary I and Elizabeth I never felt a sibling bond. The daughters of Henry VIII were enemies during their adult lives. Mary imprisoned her younger half-sister in the Tower of London and had her released on the anniversary of her mother's execution. Elizabeth was approached by persons involved in Wyatt's rebellion, but didn't reveal it to her sister. These two women seem to be the most unlikely Tudors to be buried together. But yet, their mortal remains are destined to share eternity in Westminster Abbey. One question automatically arises. Why? The short answer is, a man is to blame. The longer answer is, the two sisters never explicitly ruled a joint tomb out. That is why James I could argue he wouldn't disregard their wishes. And to make it a little bit more fun, with Henry VII, a man was involved who was dead for decades. He must have smiled in the afterlife. Out of the sudden, he was far more popular in 1558, 1603 and 1606 than ever. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. By the way, at the end I will show you something in regard to Mary that I saw on social media, and I just can't unsee it. I am very sorry. Neither Mary nor Elizabeth left precise instructions how to handle their funerals. This is what Mary wrote in her will. My body I will to be buried at the discretion of my executors. But she had one wish. Her mother should be reburied next to her. And further, I will that the body of the virtuous lady and my most dear and well-beloved mother of happy memory, Queen Catherine, which lies now buried at Peterborough, shall within as short time as conveniently it may after my burial be removed, brought, and laid nigh the place of my sepulture. Regarding the design of the joint tomb, Mary wrote that she would will my executors to cause to be made honorable tombs or monuments for a decent memory of us. Her executors decided to have her buried in the Lady Chapel of Westminster Abbey, which made sense. The structure was built by Henry VII. Mary used her grandfather again and again as a point of reference to legitimize her own rule. For comparison, this is how she described Henry VII, her father, and her brother in her will. As we know, Mary's mother wasn't reburied, and Mary's grave in Westminster Abbey remained unmarked for 48 years. Elizabeth apparently didn't feel any rush to fulfill her sister's testament to the T. She herself left similar instructions. She would trust the executors of her last will to make the right decisions. They couldn't move the tomb of her mother Anne Boleyn since they didn't know where she was exactly buried under St. Peter ad Vincula in the Tower of London. Elizabeth's father was buried in St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The work on a tomb in Westminster Abbey had started but was never finished, which was designed for Henry. Elizabeth finally moved what was finished of the tomb to Windsor in 1567. There he lay buried next to his third wife, Jane Seymour, and everybody felt it wouldn't be right to bury Elizabeth next to the woman who replaced her mother. That's why she was buried in Westminster Abbey. Her coffin was lowered into the vault of her grandfather, Henry VII. She herself had used him as a reference point several times as well. It felt reasonable to unite the founder of the Tudor dynasty with its last queen, and even more so since her grandmother Elizabeth of York was buried here as well, after whom she was named. That means in 1603 both women were buried in the Lady Chapel of Westminster Abbey because of Henry VII, but they didn't have to share a grave yet. It was the new king, James I, who changed this. When the new monarch started his reign, he felt forced to justify his claim to the throne. He was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, after all, who was executed by Elizabeth, and he himself was Scottish. Even so, James remained a favorite of the late English queen. A lot of people side-eyed him hard. If it wasn't for the enterprising Robert Cecil, his transition to power probably wouldn't have been this smooth. He therefore decided that it should be him that would have his eternal resting place next to Henry VII. The first Tudor monarch was his great-grandfather, so this would point out his legitimacy and establish a sense of continuity. Elizabeth had to go since he couldn't remove Henry's wife from the vault. The next decision to make was an answer to the question if Elizabeth should get her own tomb. James finally decided against it because he wanted to rehabilitate the name of his mother. Part of this project was to rebury her in Westminster Abbey with her own tomb. This ultimately happened in 1612. A copy of James' royal warrant commanding just this is part of the tomb. By the way, the tomb for Mary, Queen of Scots, is larger than that of Elizabeth and her sister Mary. Already in 1606, Elizabeth's coffin was removed from the vault of Henry VII. The monument for her that James had erected over Mary's tomb was finally finished. There was no better location in the chapel because it was crammed, and it is crammed. The coffins of the half-sisters were stacked on each other in the vault right under the monument. Only one sign points out that Mary is here as well. It's a single Latin sentence on the base of the monument which reads in English, "Partners in throne and grave, here we sleep, Elizabeth and Mary, sisters in the hope of the resurrection." But James had karma coming for him because of that. It was widely forgotten that he was buried in the vault of Henry VII after his death in 1625. Only excavations in the 19th century revived this memory. It was fun to deal with Elizabeth and Mary, so we will do it in the near future 2 more times. Like and subscribe to not miss these videos. And here, as promised, is what I just can't unsee. Thanks for watching.